We brought our floating home, a Hallberg-Rassy 53, to Harrington Harbor North in Tracy's Landing, Maryland, in order to do a pretty extensive retrofit. This video covers just one of the projects that we accomplished.
Hello, this video is to show those who cannot find on the internet how to install the air-only deck vents. So with your kit, this is what's included. Nuts for holding on the top. The silicone which go on the interior and the close and open vent, and your base. You also get balls that go inside, Teflon balls, which I don't have because they're downstairs in my drawers. In the kit there's two baggies, little baggies with screws in them. There's actually three. You get the three little ones that hold the cone up in place from the bottom. You get a group of 18 for putting through into the deck, holding the part down that holds the balls inside, and then the cap that holds that down on top. You also get silicone rings, one silicone ring here, one silicone ring here, and then one silicone ring for the shutoff that seals your air-only vent to make it watertight. On the inside, I tape paper towel over the hole so when I'm cutting, to limit the excessive fall of the filings into the boat. What I didn't show you is when I put the cylinder through, I actually installed it. It comes with 3 screws. I did find the screws were magnetic, so they might be best to be swapped out for a stainless steel 316 because they're very fine, small screws, and you would not want to have one break off. But I installed this in the roof liner, knowing where it was located and was very flat to the roof liner, and therefore making the cut on the deck level proper. With a Sharpie, I marked on the cylinder the size in which to cut. That way I know I have a guide when I'm going around with the ultrasonic cutter or fine tool that I will get the right height. After cutting, I've taken a little bit of sandpaper just to take the burr off the inside edge. When you dismantle, to be able to prep for the caulking on the back side, you'll be able to take care of the burr on the outside. What I also recommend is taking a sander and just sanding that surface perfectly smooth and flat in the top for the next piece that fits over top. Make sure when you're sanding to make sure you maintain the distance that's going to be 1 to 2 millimeters above the deck, enough that it makes proper sealant around the next item. As you can see, we've maintained a nice lip all the way around. This is the DS1 that fits on top of the tube. As you can see, we've got a good clearance all the way around to be able to hold sealant and seal the item against the deck. If you're doing multiple air-only vents, it's worthwhile marking them. In this case, I marked this as forward port and this is forward side. So when I take this back out, I know the position in which to reinstall it. When marking the tube that sticks above the deck, I used a mixing stick, and that gave me my height to be able to use my Sharpie. And then I can use that to lean the ultrasonic on to be able to cut it. Good distance all the way around underneath to be able to put a sealant. So after caulking the deck, if you've done recaulking, or if you just drilled the hole to be able to put the sleeve up through, this is what it looks like. Putting the caulking up against the tape means the tape will pull away from the caulking, leaving you a perfectly good hole to be able to put the vent through. Sand the surface of the hole as flush as you can to be above even caulk when you put down the top plate. So the next thing you got to do is fit the outer ring so it fits relatively flat. You can sand the highs if you have a rounded deck of teak. You can't really do much if you have a gel coat, but be able to make it flat because this has got less flexibility to be able to fit over top. Fitting the cone back up through the deck after sanding it might be a little bit too high, which you can sand the surface off to be able to have this item as flat and as close to the surface, still leaving a little room for caulking, because that's where you want to seal, is you want to put your silicone around the outside of this, and that's what makes the seal underneath here to stop any water from going down below. The balls do their job in the top, the sealant does its job on the deck. The idea of having 1 to 2 millimeters of the cone sticking above the deck is for the purpose of the actual ring sitting in place, and then the cap being able to lock on but not go underneath, to be able to position yourself and everything held together. I used 80 grit on a vacuum sander to be able to sand the deck as well as do the cone down to shape. You might want to make sure someone's on the inside with a box holding, because dust will still go through into the cabin. Before installing with caulking and knowing what you need to do for position, align the top to either read your air only if you'd like, but once you're in position, that's where it stays. So this would be a good point in which to be able to mark your holes and where everything goes, whether it be on this outside or on the inside holes, which hold down the piece with the caulking. In the back, there's a hexagon fitting for the nut. Hold it in place, and the screw from the other side. Putting it together like this, when you put it flat on the deck, you can then take the screw out, put the cap on, and screw through to hold it in place. If you've sanded your teak, you realize that the heat and sanding to new product will bring the oils to the surface. Bringing the oils to the surface makes it harder for the caulking to stick. I recommend using a rag, lint-free if possible, a little bit of acetone on it, and a quick wipe, not to affect the caulk in the deck, but enough to be able to clean it up and have the caulking stick very well. It should evaporate rather quickly. When fitting this to the deck, caulking and teak strips, you can rotate it to make sure you have the best possible position for the most amount of screws getting into their best position to hold this down with the screws that are provided. I recommend marking the front or the back, something for a reference. In this case, I've marked the front just with a dot on a Sharpie, so I know when I'm repositioning to put the caulking, I know where to put it back down. When putting screws through either gel coat or fiberglass or teak decks, I recommend a pilot hole with the proper size bit for the screw so you don't splinter the wood, don't break the screw. Worst case scenario, breaking a screw head makes things very, very difficult. So piloting the hole, tap the screw a couple of times, make sure you're comfortable with it before you go ahead and apply the caulking. I don't recommend using a power tool. Stainless steel, once it gets hot, gets very brittle. This way you know when there's something goes wrong. You can tighten it and loosen it without any issues. Careful not to over tighten, as remember there should be a little bit of a gap underneath this for caulking to be able to have the strength of the caulking as an adhesive and also as a sealant. a bit fussy when I do my caulking. What I like to do is I like to use tape so that I can position the caulking right around tight to the item without having it smeared across the deck. I can achieve this by putting tape in place using a fine blade knife and cutting just gently to cut the tape, pull that tape area away, and that leaves me a nice surface area to be able to put the caulk down and then very quickly use a tongue depressor or putty knife to be able to take the excess caulk away, and it leaves you a very nice clean surface, and it looks very professional once you're done. I like using a little extra tape because I hate getting the caulking on the deck and trying to clean that up later. A little bit of tape saves that. Once I have the deck positioned, I also like to take tape, go along the edge of the item you're putting down. This way it makes it easy not to get it everywhere. In my opinion, this is one of the most critical parts because this is what makes the difference between that seal not leaking into your boat. Again, my dot, I know which way was forward. Very easy to position it. And I'm ready for caulk. As long as the caulking comes out on every side, you know you've got a good seal. I don't like tightening things down too much. let the adhesive be the sealant, and also it'll be the part that's going to be between the teak deck or the gel coat and your item, and that sealant and adhesive is what will hold everything in place. Be careful not to over tighten, just finger tight is enough.
Can you tell we're in a travel yard?
Are we in the way? Using a tongue depressor, I like the plastic ones. I like reusing them. A lot of times the wood ones you end up throwing away. But if you go along the edge, and you want to do this fairly quickly after you've put the caulking in place. Not quite right away, give it a couple minutes. Just makes it so it doesn't drip as much. And this way, when you have the tape on the deck, it means it's an easy cleanup later. You want to not have a lot of taper on it because, of course, the ring fits in over the outside. And if you have caulking in the position where the ring is supposed to be, you're going to have to make some changes. Reusable for the next time. Simple, easy, very clean. Now we let it set. It will skim over in about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on temperature, and 24 hours for full cure. We'll come back and visit this. We have 6 other ones on the boat that we're about to attempt, and we'll come back and finish this one tomorrow. Okay, so we've let 24 hours pass. The silicone is all dry in around the base. That means it's all sealed as well as the adhesion. So that's going to hold that in place. The next thing you want to do is you want to take the ring, putting the screws to the back, because once this is down, it doesn't come back up again, and it holds them in place. So you put the screw through just loosely, don't bottom it out. Fit it over. I'm particular, I like the air only vent logo to be in line with the boat. So therefore I move the base around to make it match. And if it doesn't work that way, because they look at the screw holes which are going to go through into your deck, if you're going through too much caulking, you want to be able to adjust it. And try again. might not be able to avoid it, but you can do your best. In this case, my lineup is with my air only vent this way, which if it's like this on this one, chances are it's going to be the same on the other ones. Set that aside. Now the screws you use are a little bit bigger than the other 18 screws, so you want to make sure you pilot with the proper drill bit, drilling through into the deck or into your gel coat to be able to have a gentle but secure fit. When installing these, I like to drill one first and have it hold it in place. Note your depth, not to go too far into your coach roof. That's where mine goes. Quick vacuum. Again, I don't like using power tools to do this. The feel of knowing what's going on. Not over tightening, but nice and secure. And once one's in, you can go and install the other ones. Because you've already sealed this unit, which will be where water would be able to penetrate to the cabin through the tube on either outside or coming down the inside. So with the silicone, it should be waterproof. So it's not necessary to put sealant on these. You may, if you'd like to stop the bolts or nuts from rusting. I myself like to wrap very tight butyl tape around them, and that would be bedding the stainless steel against the teak. Also means it's easier to get out, and it doesn't, if it does rust, which of course stainless is stainless, it's not rust proof. So there is no need to seal this. The problem with putting caulking behind this is it would keep it up off the deck, and the whole idea is you're wanting this as flat to the deck as possible for the fitting of the top. Okay, we're ready for the next silicone seal. Now these silicone seals like to roll, so if you put it on the one side, I like to twist it backwards to keep it on. They can be a little bit challenging to keep them in place. So you turn it downwards so it tries to pull itself on, and it keeps it on. So that seal, then you take this, which retains, this is what's going to retain the balls. So it's at this point then you take your balls and simply put them in place. just like that. Take your cover gently, try and line up the holes. Just let it fall into place. Line up the holes. Take your screwdriver, just gently start one side, go opposite. Just like when you're torquing down tires or torquing down head bolts, try and go opposites if you can. Keeps everything lined up straight. Again, I don't like using power tools for this. This is plastic still. Idea that it will warm up, gives it a chance to cool for a second while you move on to the next screw. Once stainless steel bolts get hot, they get brittle, and lots of times I have in the past snapped the heads off. So it's a delicate piece, but yet very durable. You take care of it and it'll take care of you. So now my final tighten as I go around. And you'll start to feel it pulling itself down against that silicone ring. Again, these don't have to be super tight, just snug. As you can see, I'm just using fingertips on the screwdriver. You'll feel when they bottom out. Okay. Now it's time for our next ring. Same idea. To get it to stay on, you want to hold it in place and rotate it down. Now that you got that silicone ring down, the last silicone ring goes on this. Again, a little bit of turning it down will help it stay on. The screw that holds the handle down will be put on after. Line it up, push it down, and you can see that's the closed position. That's what will make the seal. Take your top cap, again to help it line up. Just finger tight will help it stay right in position. Opposite sides. Again, do not over torque it. You do not want to strip this, so just using finger tight. Around, you'll feel it stop in place. Perfect. Now comes time for putting on the lid. These screws are a slot screwdriver. The other ones were a Phillips bit. Take each screw off the nut that you already installed it on. position your cap. Again, going opposite helps you line everything up. Key here is not tight. Throughout the whole video, everything I've basically been doing just with finger grip. I need the screwdriver. One final check. And there's your air only installed. Once you've put in the stopper, which is your air stopper, I piloted the hole first, one time through into it, which makes it easier to install at this point, because you have to reach up inside, put it in the hole, hold it, tighten it, and you're done.